Hello and welcome to Cloudforest Vibes. My name's Bobby, and this is how I grow orchids and carnivorous plants. Hello and welcome to Cloudforest Vibes. So today we're going to go through and we're going to look at the tank. I'm going to start by looking at the setup actually. Several people have asked me to go into depth more about my actual setup and how I grow these plants. So we're going to go ahead and start by doing that, and then we'll end off by taking a look at some of the lovely plants in here right now. I've got a lot going on. There's always a lot going on. Again, I've said this before, but the joy of growing these miniature plants, they don't have the huge blooms, most of them. They don't have big growths or anything like that, but what they do make up for in lack of size is frequency of bloom. They are literally almost always in bloom year-round. Honestly, there's never a moment where you cannot look into this tank and see something in flower. If you love orchids as much as I do, then waiting on some of the larger, slower-growing orchids to produce flowers can be painstaking. It can be kind of dejecting sometimes. For instance, my yellowbird, my lepidum, those things took 2 years to get to bloom, and 2 years is a long time to wait. A year is a long time to wait. So when I have something I can come in anytime I want and always see flowers, it's very refreshing. It's very rewarding, to say the least, with all the hard work that goes into growing all these types of plants. So without further ado, let's get into it. I will give you a nice tour of my setup and give you a little bit of information on it. So I hope you enjoy, I hope you learn something, and again, feel free to ask me any questions you have in the comments below. I do love interacting with you guys. I might be slow to respond sometimes, but I absolutely respond to every single comment. I will always do that. So here we go. Here's the tank tour and an update on some of these really cool blooms that we've got. Alright, so I've got the camera off the tripod here. It's going to be much easier to film all this stuff this way. But let's just start with the tank itself. This tank is actually an aquarium. I bought this off of Craigslist and I modified it myself to be this vertical standing terrarium, for lack of a better way of putting it. I've cut the cross bracing that's usually in the middle of the aquarium for support. I've cut that out and I have just sat it on its end. That would be a side. This would be the top of the aquarium where the door is itself. And the dimensions of this thing are 4 foot tall by 20 inches deep by 18 inches wide. That is the gist of that. I think it was $70 or something like that to get the tank, so I didn't spend a whole bank. I didn't spend a whole lot of money on the tank itself. I did want to spend more money on, obviously, the plants themselves, but I wanted to create a system that was pretty much self-controllable, and we'll get into that here in just a few moments. The other modifications I've made to the tank itself are, I've put this plexiglass or Lexan polycarbonate paneling in. I've cut 3 sections of it. I have this top section here with holes that are drilled through it, 1/8 inch, I believe, holes drilled all through it for aeration purposes, and I have these 2 fans here for parts of my controls, which again we'll get into that here in a moment. The door itself I swung with really cheap hinges from, again, department store. I think I used Home Depot for all this stuff. These little sliding latch bolts here, and I did put some cabinet magnets on as well to help keep the door shut, you know, if I forget to lock it or something like that. The bottom, again, this is a solid piece of that Lexan polycarbonate paneling. I've got it screwed in. I've got all this siliconed in down here just in case for water purposes. And I did put a hole in it here with some PVC piping fittings that I could modify to get the humidifier into the bottom of the tank where I wanted it. Inside the tank, this stuff here is just egg crate light diffuser. Again, Home Depot bought, I believe it was $12 or $13 per sheet that I bought. I think I used 2 sheets for this. Didn't use them all, but I had to have 2 sheets. I didn't have enough with one. And I cut it in sections big enough that I could manipulate to get in here, and they kind of just lock together. I was going to zip tie them, but they really don't need it. They've got kind of teeth that stick out if you cut them the right way, and I just kind of lock the teeth into the grid pattern and everything stays rigid that way. I did have to build a support here, and that's kind of what this is. It kind of supports the front and pushes it back and holds it all together, but I also utilized that with some small circulation fans that I have throughout here. I've got 3 of them, one down here, and I have 2 up there. They're 2.5-inch computer fans. I bought them off of Amazon for dirt cheap with the wiring and everything else, and they run full time. I wired them into a little cell phone charger deal here, little 12-volt AC charger, and that's that. They run full time. They circulate the mist down here at the bottom. When the door is closed, this hits the door, it deflects down, and it creates that lifting effect of the fog, which I can show you right now actually. Watch it all clear out. Lifts the fog up through the tank, or the mist I should say, up through the tank to the other fans, which circulate it down in the front, and again it's just cycles and cycles and cycles. Really cool little system that ended up working out. The other little gadgets you see here, that's the hygrometer, or the humidity sensor for the Inkbird, and I also have a temperature sensor up here with another Inkbird. These 2 fans here are hooked up to the humidistat and the thermostat. They come on for either a cooling setting or a dehumidification setting. Now I know that sounds strange, but what I do is I utilize the dryer air in my house with the fan here hooked up to the humidistat, so when the humidity gets too high, this fan sucks dry air in from my house and circulates it in with the moist air of the tank until the levels fall to an appropriate level, and then it cuts off. Once the humidity drops, when it drops, if it drops, once I usually have the door open or I turn it on myself because the tank really does hold humidity quite well, then I have an evergreen Reptimist humidifier down here that I got off of Amazon, and that's again piped into the bottom where the mist comes out and circulates up through the tank through the fans that I just showed you guys. The other fan that I have here is hooked up to the Inkbird thermostat down here and acts as a cooling setting. Again, if the tank usually gets too warm, it's because it's too hot in the room, but it works out because it will balance. The cool mist cools the tank down quite a bit, so if this does kick on and my ambient temperature isn't copacetic with cooling via this fan, then once this kicks on then once the humidifier kicks on, it has a really good cooling effect, and it does drop the temperature right down. So in the event that the room does get too warm for my maximum high, even if this thing is running full tilt, pulling in dry and warm air, you will always have the counterbalance of having this running alongside of it, because if it gets dry air, this will kick on. It's a little system. So the fans themselves, forgive me, I do not remember the name of them. Give me 1 second. They don't have markings. Okay guys, well, I bought them off of Amazon. I will put some information either on the screen or I'll do a snapshot or something and I will show you exactly what this product is. I cannot remember for the life of me. But they come with fan speed controllers. Oh gosh, it's right there, there's the name. AC Infinity. So these are AC Infinity axial fans, I do remember that. And these are the 3-inch, I'm sorry, 3 or 4-inch. 4-inch fans. These are the 4-inch fans. They are great. I absolutely love them. They work fantastic. They're very strong, they're very quiet, and they're very efficient. I really like these products. And they come again with the fan speed controller, sold separately, but you can get it, and that way you can tune how strong you want this on, because full blast, this thing is a little tornado. I mean, it's really, really amazing. It's absolutely cool. I have a timer here that's hooked up to my light above. This light I use is a very simple thing you can get at PetSmart. It's a reptile spot lamp, and what I have inside of it is a Canagrow Cree LED retrofit bulb. They do not, the Canagrow brand is gone, but Sansi, Spider Farmer, there's a whole bunch of other ones out there. I do not want the purple blurple light anywhere near this tank, because the true colors of these plants are too spectacular to screw up with that. But I got the natural daylight spectrum. It is, I think, a 45 or 55, sorry, it's between, I think it's between 50 and 65 watts. I have to double check that. I will put that on the screen as well here. But that is what provides 99% of the lighting for this tank. They get some ambient light from the grow lights on the tent behind us, but that is basically that. That is my system. That is my tank. And again, I put it all together myself. It was a few $100s overall, but rather than buying one, it would have been a lot more expensive to buy something pre-made like this. It's doable, guys. It's a really, really good investment to make if you want to grow miniatures, or if you have sensitive tropical plants of any kind that need high humidity and just their own little ecosystem, their own little environment. Then this is an absolutely fantastic way to do it. I cannot say enough good things about growing inside of a tank for these miniatures. They really, really do appreciate it. So having that said, let's go take a look at how much they appreciate it, and I will show you some of my all-star plants. I have a really cool new flower I want to show you guys. We'll probably do that first, and then yeah, we'll close out by looking at some of the fruits of the labor and some of the proof of the success of a setup just like this for these miniature plants. Now, first and foremost, I know you guys have probably been staring at this in the larger shot, but this is the Dendrobium cuthbertsonii hybrid, and it is starting to just burst. It's got two opening right here. Its latest one on top is opening. Oh, that one started this morning, I guess, because it wasn't like that yesterday. So this is rapidly becoming one of my favorite orchids, one of my favorite genuses of orchids, I should say. And this is why the potential of these blooms filling up this greenhouse is just so cool. But this plant is doing outstanding in here. The environment is darn near perfect for it, and it's rewarding us with these blooms, and it's growing like a weed. It's got at least 2, maybe even 3 new growths started as well at the base, and I am just over the moon. So great progress on this. This little guy is just a stunner. I absolutely adore it. I show it off every time I have a video in here right now because I'm so proud of it. And we definitely have another bud forming here and another bud forming here. So this will be hopefully 3 blooms strong very soon, and we'll be able to enjoy a whole lot more of this. I love this plant. This plant I had to actually pick up, but this is our Lepanthes guatemalensis, and it has actually opened up its first flower. I'm going to desperately try to get in close enough. It is well worth it. It's a translucent yellow, and it has an awesome red petals and lip inside of it that I am just really thrilled with. It's a sequential bloomer. It's got this bloom that opened up here, and then just above it, it's got the spike extending for the next. It has a bloom forming here, and again, in front of it, it keeps pushing on. So really cool little growth and blooming pattern for this plant, and it is doing really well. It's doing happy. This is one of my newer acquisitions. It came really small. I was worried about it acclimatizing to my grow environment, and it did really well because of the tank. Now, I talk about this plant a lot. This is a real powerhouse. It's one of my favorites. This is Lepanthes helicocephala. It's got another set of beautiful yellow and red blooms with pink and purple accents to them. And this one, again, blooms and blooms and blooms. It grows really well for me. The growths that came on it are these smaller ones back here. And since it's been in my environment, in this light and the humidity and everything else, it has started throwing double and triple bloom spikes, and the foliage itself has gotten much larger. These are the largest growths on these plants, and they are mine. I fully attribute that to, again, the humidity, the temperature, everything being just optimal for these kinds of plants. And again, the tank has a lot of air movement, the humidity stays high, which sometimes can be a hard balance to achieve, and it's always cycling fresh air in, so these plants who love to stay moist all the time aren't getting terrible bacterial and fungal issues like you might find if you didn't have some sort of circulation. So dropping down again, I wanted to throw this in the update even though we have spoken about this plant pretty recently. This is my Dracula Lotax, and this plant is also doing really well. It has some older foliage here that's starting to die off. It's dropped a few leaves this season, but it's also pushing out leaves all over it, keeping on the growth. It's pushing out spikes. We have 4 spikes on right now, and I'm really pleased to say that this plant is happy. The live moss, everything on this plant, I do not think would be possible, or I do not think would be feasible in my conditions here without this setup. The fact that my other Draculas have struggled even in the tent with similar but not optimal conditions is kind of proof in the pudding to me that this is the way to go for these type of plants. I really do want to set up a larger tank that I can make specific to a different kind of climate. I want to make it either warmer or cooler, so be it, whatever I can. But for now, this is what I've got. I grow intermediate in here, and as you can see, these plants that like just a little bit higher humidity or air movement or whatever it is that they're being supplied in here that they don't get in the tent, they just thrive. I also definitely don't get the high temperatures in here. There's no sun, there's no solar radiation of any kind. All the temperatures are man-made, they're artificial, and they stay sustained easier that way. I don't have any variables other than power failure really that I have to worry about. So not filling up the humidifier, human error and power failure are basically the 2 only things that will stop this tank from functioning the way it does right now. So I did realize I was missing one element talking about temperatures just a second ago. The black pad that you see back here, that is a reptile under tank heater. I do have it on the back side, which actually is better. It doesn't pool heat, it doesn't burn itself out being underneath of a tank, and I have that hooked up to the heating side of this Inkbird. So at nighttime, this tank never goes below 60 degrees. That is a secret. For this one, I've never let it get any lower. It might have hit 59 a couple times before the heater kicks in and gets it up warm enough, but this tank stays at a very intermediate temperature. Never goes over 76 and never goes below 60. So anyhow, I do hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed making it for you. I hope you guys learned something. And again, please feel free to ask any questions you may have regarding my setup or anything like that. I'm happy to answer it. I'm a total tech geek and nerd when it comes to this stuff, and I love contributing any of my knowledge and help to other people to help them grow these awesome plants. So thank you guys so much as always for watching. I do appreciate it, and until next time, stay safe and happy growing.